All right, so let's keep reading. In Revelation, if you guys are new here, thank you so much for being here. My name is Ryan. We're just going through the Bible book by book, chapter by chapter. All of these are uploaded to YouTube. If you wanted to go check it out, you are more than willing or more than able to. There's a link up in my TikTok profile if you wanted to come check us out. We're live streaming on YouTube as well. There's, thank you, yeah, it's ITZ_sheesh if you want to go follow, just because they're thinking about getting rid of TikTok here in America. So if you wanted to stay in touch and you like these verse-by-verse Bible studies, all of these are uploaded to YouTube. They go pretty long. They are very long, but they I feel like we do a pretty good job at unpacking things. And so one way or the other, I would encourage you to get involved and learn and grow and do what you can, because we are one day closer to home. So if you, there's also a link there, threadsthatpreach.com, if you wanted to go check that out. There's a website that is new where you can get stuff like this. All of these, all of the merchandise there supports this ministry. So if you would like to keep, help this out, then maybe consider that as an option. Not something you have to do, but it's an option for you to consider. All right. So let's go ahead. Hey, thank you. Thank you. Just followed on YouTube. Thank you, Susie. Very cool. Thank you. That's awesome. Time frame is way off. Yeah, it could be. That was so kind. Yeah, Bridget, thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, so let's go ahead and get on into, let's try to continue on here. So the millennial kingdom ends with that test for mankind, and that test, like we talked about, begins that test begins, like, imagine if, the teacher is handing out all the papers and then the clock, she starts the clock, or he starts the clock, and then you have an hour to complete the test. Well, the test begins right when Satan gets released. So right when he gets released, he goes and he goes and he goes and he goes and he goes to Gog. He deceives him. Then God gets his people and he gets everybody in order, and then they surround the city. And then right when everybody is in their places, right in the sight of everybody, God saves them and he devours them. It's unbelievable. So after Satan is in the lake of fire, which is what we read in Revelation chapter 20, verse 10. If you want to read Revelation chapter 20, verse 10, in Revelation chapter 20, verse 10, it says, "The devil who deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are. And they will be tormented day and night forever and ever." And so after Satan is cast into the lake of fire, the millennial kingdom is going to end. And then there was going to be a transfer of power that is going to basically be taking place in some kind of capacity, which is something that is too much for my mind to really wrap around. But let's go read a little bit and try to put some pieces together, because we kind of talked about this before. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 24. Go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 24. In 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 24, you really get into some interesting waters as far as like trying to explain certain passages and try to understand them, and it's challenging. But let's do the best that we can. In 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 24, it says, "Then comes the end, when he delivers the kingdom to God the Father, when he puts an end to all rule and all authority and power." So what you're seeing here in verse 24 is what happens at the end. And basically the end is essentially describing the beginning of a new beginning, which is what we're going to read about when we get into Revelation 21 and 22. But here in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 24, it says, "Then comes the end, when he," Jesus, "delivers the kingdom to God the Father." What? So Jesus delivers the kingdom to God the Father, when he, Jesus, puts an end to all rule and all authority and power. Jesus needs to put an end to all rule and all authority and power. When is that going to happen? It's going to happen at the end of the millennial kingdom. That's why we're here, because this is only going to take place at the end of the millennial kingdom. In verse 25, in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 25, it says, "For he must reign till he has put all enemies under his feet. This is, again, going to take place during the millennial kingdom. That's crazy. Verse 26, this is good to remember. In verse 26, the last enemy that will be destroyed is death. So the enemy that you and I think is the worst is Satan, which obviously is, but he's not the last enemy to be dealt with. The last enemy to be dealt with is not Satan. The last enemy is death. So in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 26, it says the last enemy that will be destroyed is death. Can you imagine? Just think about that. Just think about that. He is going to get rid of it, which means that nothing that what is left is life. So at the end of the millennial kingdom, where there's still people dying in the millennial kingdom, at the end of the millennial kingdom where people are still dying, the last enemy, after Satan is destroyed, after he is thrown into the lake of fire where the beast and the false prophet are, after all of that, the last enemy is going to be death. He's going to get rid of it. He's like, this is done. He's like, what? Death? You guys remember that time where death was a thing? That's gonna... In verse 27, 1 Corinthians 15, verse 27, it says, for he has put all things under his feet. But when he says all things are put under him, it is evident that he who put all things under him is accepted. Now, the right there, it's in verse 27 where it says, it is evident that he who put all things under him is accepted. That word there has basically is the exception, that Jesus is the exception, meaning that everything is put under God with the exception of Jesus. Everything is under God with the exception of Jesus. That's what that verse is talking about. But then here in verse 28, you get to the kicker where I'm just like, I don't know what this means, but I like trying to think about it. And it's not something I can do. Hey, thank you, Jennifer. Big Mama, hello. This verse really just, I don't know how to explain it, but I would like to know. In verse 28, it says, now when all things are made subject to him, then the Son himself will also be subject to him who put all things under him. And here it is, that God may be all in all. And so that God may be all in all is like where I'm kind of hung up on. You know, the Son being subject to him, you know, that's nothing new. That's not a new concept, because when Jesus was here on the earth, he submitted to the Father, right? When Jesus was in the garden, what did he say? He was praying. He's like, Lord, 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 Lord. He's like, not my will, but your will. So he was already submitted. He already was in a submissive role to the Father, which was teaching us. He was teaching us. His whole life was teaching us. But man, right there is teaching us. It's really crazy, because like when we're praying, we pray, God, can you help me out with this? Can you help me with this? I need help here, 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 and here, and here. But then at the end of that, pray for not my will, but your will. Because like my will doesn't matter. Like it's not me. And that's the thing that's hard to get over. Like it's hard getting over myself. And so when you remember not my will, but your will. So it says here that God may be all in all. And it's just like one of those things like where I don't know. I don't know what that means. But it is, I have no idea. And you know, you can dance with that if you would like to, but it just is really, it's really quite something. But in verse 24, in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 24, ultimately everything must be turned over to God the Father, which occurs after the millennial reign of Jesus, which is what verse 25 is talking about. And at that point, which is when Jesus defeats every enemy. The last enemy is not Satan. The last enemy is death itself. And that's what you see in verse 26. Death still exists during the millennial kingdom. So death cannot be defeated until after the millennial kingdom, after Satan is in the lake of fire. Death cannot go away until after Satan is taken care of. There is an order of operations here, and it is cool to put these pieces together. But after all of these things take place, after Satan is taken care of, after Satan is thrown into the lake of fire, and then after that, then death is taken care of after that. Whenever all of those things are done, it is at that point when God will be all in all. I have questions, right? Like, I just have questions. Like, what is that? What is going? I just have questions. But let's go back to Revelation chapter 20. Let's go back to Revelation chapter 20. What questions? What it means for God to be all in all? Like, I just don't know. I don't know. Like, what I need. I just have questions. Let's go back to Revelation chapter 20. In Revelation chapter 20, verse 10, it says, "The devil who deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever." And that is that's really interesting, because we understand that, some people think that the beast that comes out of the sea in Revelation chapter 13 is just a system. They think it's just a system. They don't think it's a person. But there is a person. And so we know that because here in Revelation chapter 20, verse 10, again, it says where the beast and the false prophet are. God didn't throw a system, like a hierarchy, into the lake of fire. He threw a person, and that person is the Antichrist. So the first two people who are going to be thrown into the lake of fire are going to be the Antichrist, or the son of perdition, the lawless one, the man of sin, whatever you want to refer to him as. But the Antichrist, we'll just land on that title, is the beast, and the false prophet is also a human being as well. So there's two human beings with their bodies in the lake of fire. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk more about that here in a little bit. But after this battle that we just read about in Revelation chapter 20, verse 7 through 9, after this battle, Satan is cast into the lake of fire, and this is his final end. This is when Satan is done. Satan is done, and he's finished. This is when he's finished. And we get to read about it. And so when you go back to Revelation chapter 1, verse 3, and you see how there is a blessing attached to this book, and we're told that you are happy. That's what the word blessed means. You are happy when you recognize that Satan's going to be cast into the lake of fire, and that so is death. That makes me happy. That makes me happy. And I am blessed by that. But then in Revelation chapter 20, so we talked about this before. There's nobody in the lake of fire right now. There's nobody. There's nobody in the lake of fire right now. There's not. If somebody died right now and they never put their faith in Jesus, they are not in the lake of fire yet. That is not going to take place until the very end. So let's get there. So in Revelation chapter 20, verse 11, it says this. Revelation chapter 20, verse 11, it says, "Then I saw a great white throne, and him who sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God, and books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged according to their works by the things which were written in the books." Okay, so that is what is going on in Revelation chapter 20, verse 11 and 12, but it's really deep. First off, in Revelation chapter 20, verse 11, it says, "Then I saw a great white throne and him who sat on it." Now, so there's somebody sitting on this throne, and let's go to John chapter 5, verse 22. John chapter 5, verse 22, because this is most definitely Jesus who is sitting on this throne. In John chapter 5, verse 22, it says, "For the Father judges no one, but has committed all judgment to the Son." That is what is going on there in Revelation chapter 20, verse 11. So this is Jesus. It's the Son, right? So it says, then in Revelation chapter 20, verse 11, it says, then I saw a great white throne, and him, Jesus, who sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. So here, this is when the earth seems to be dissolved. Let's go to 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 7 real fast. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. In 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 7, it says, but the heavens and the earth, which are now preserved by the same word, are reserved for fire until the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. But beloved, do not forget this one thing, that with the Lord 1 day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as 1 day. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some count slackness, but is long-suffering toward us, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. Verse 10, 2 Peter 3, verse 10, it says, but the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with a great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Both the earth and the works that are in it will be burned up. Therefore, since all these things will be dissolved, what manner of persons ought you to be in holy conduct and godliness, looking for and hastening the coming of the day of God, because of which the heavens will be dissolved, being on fire, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth, in which righteousness dwells. So here in Revelation chapter 20, going back to Revelation chapter 20, verse 11, in Revelation chapter 20, verse 11, this seems to be where it says whose face the earth and the heaven fled away. This seems to be that dissolving. It seems to be that dissolving. So the heavens and earth dissolved, right? Because here, this is Jesus sitting on the great white throne. So you're in this really just dynamic situation. God is sitting on the great white throne. This great white throne is the end-all, be-all for judgment. So here in verse 12, when you go down, now that the millennial kingdom is done, the old earth is going away. So in verse 12, it says, and I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God, and the books were opened. So the purpose of this throne is to determine the degree of punishment that is going to be for the people who have already died in their sins. This throne, this great white throne, is for the unbeliever only. You do not want to go before the great white throne. You don't want to go there. That is not a place, even though it sounds really awesome because it's great white, right? Like you think it's amazing. What's up, Cole? You don't want to go there. This is for those who have died and never put their faith in Jesus. This is for the unbelievers, and it's for the unbelievers only. So in Revelation chapter 20, verse 11 and 12, where you're reading about this great white throne, the reason why this throne is here is to determine the degree of punishment for the dead. And this is not a new concept. Let's go to Matthew chapter 11, verse 20. Matthew chapter 11, verse 20. In Matthew chapter 11, verse 20 through 24, Jesus is talking, and he's talking about these different cities. In Matthew chapter 11, verse 20, it says this, then he, Jesus, began to rebuke the cities in which most of his mighty works had been done, because they did not repent. In verse 21, Jesus says, woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works which were done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I say to you, it will be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon in the day of judgment than for you. So what you're seeing here is Jesus is saying very clearly there is a difference for these levels or these degrees of judgment. there's different degrees of judgment or punishment at the great white throne. And here he's basically talking to Chorazin and Bethsaida, and he's saying, guys, he's like, I did amazing things in the sight of you, and you did not repent. But if I have done these same things over here, these people would have repented. And so that's why Jesus says it's going to be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon, because Tyre and Sidon, they did not accept him. But it's going to be more tolerable. It's going to be a lesser of a punishment on Tyre and Sidon because they did not have as much light revealed to them. But Chorazin and Bethsaida, they did have a lot of light revealed to them. And because of all the light that they had revealed to them, Jesus is like, it's going to be terrible for you, but it's going to be more tolerable for these people because they didn't have these mighty works done in them. So their punishment is not going to be as bad as your punishment. That's basically what's going on in Matthew chapter 11. Now let's go to Luke chapter 12, verse 47. Luke chapter 12, verse 47. Go to Luke chapter 12, verse 47. In Luke chapter 12, verse 47, you have this very weird kind of passage here. But in Luke chapter 12, verse 47, it says, and that servant who knew his master's will and did not prepare himself or do according to his will shall be beaten with many stripes. But he who did not know, yet committed things deserving of stripes, shall be beaten with few. For everyone to whom much is given, from him much will be required. And to whom much has been committed, of him they will ask the more. So here in Luke chapter 12, verse 47, what you see is Jesus is basically talking about different degrees of punishment again. Because in Luke 12, verse 47, it says, and that servant who knew his master's will and did not prepare himself or do according to his will shall be beaten with many stripes. So the people who are full on, who have a whole bunch of light, they know. There's a lot of people here on TikTok, who are actively, it really blows my mind. There are people who make a career out of saying something does not exist. And the people who make a career out of saying that God does not exist means that they know what the Bible says. And so they understand what the Bible says. And while they are studying on how to defeat the Bible and say how God is not real and he doesn't exist and all these things, they're making a lot of money because they write a lot of books, they got a lot of followers, and they have a lot of information, they have a lot of knowledge. So those people, they're going to have a higher degree of punishment. They are going, in this idea here, the beaten with many stripes, because the light revealed to them was more. But here in in Luke 12, verse 48, he compares the two. Because in verse 47, you have a servant who knew, but in verse 48, you have a servant who did not know. And so these people have different degrees of light revealed to them. So some people have a lot of light revealed to them, and they just completely live in rebellion of who Jesus is. If you go back into Matthew and you read about these Pharisees, they had an insane amount of light revealed to them. Some Pharisees ended up following and putting their faith in Jesus, but there was a lot of Pharisees who never put their faith in Jesus because they just didn't want to, they were pushing against they wanted Jesus to conform to their Pharisaical teachings, and since Jesus didn't do that, they lived in active rebellion their entire life. And so those people, they're going to have a lot to basically give an account for. But in verse 48, it says, but he who did not know, yet committed things deserving of stripes, shall be beaten with few. So these are different degrees of punishment. And so this, like I said before, this is nothing new. Let's go to John 19, verse 11. And let's see how this was actually handled in regards to Jesus, because when Jesus was on trial, he's having this conversation with Pilate. And so in John chapter 19, verse 11, Jesus is talking to Pilate, and he says in John 19, verse 11, it says, Jesus answered, you could have no power at all against me unless it had been given to you from above. Therefore, the one who delivered me to you has the greater sin. The greater sin. Think about that. the greater sin. There are people who sin, and it's never good, but there are sins that are greater than others. And so that's what's going on here. Jesus is like, this is a greater sin. And so you have all of this is getting you to the idea to understand what's going on here at the Great White Throne. During the Great White Throne, when these books are opened, people are going to be judged according to their works. And there are going to be people who receive greater condemnation and those who receive lesser condemnation. I also think, I'm not sure, Matthew 18 perhaps. Well, I'll just look at it real fast if it's not there. Would you just look at this? Would you look at it? But Matthew, perhaps, no. Maybe it's 23. Yeah, so in Matthew chapter 23, it's Matthew chapter 23, verse 14. In Matthew chapter 23, verse 14, when Jesus is talking to the scribes and Pharisees, in Matthew 23, verse 14, Jesus says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayers. Therefore, you will receive greater condemnation." That's staggering. There are people who are going to receive a greater condemnation than other lost people. Some lost people, now don't get me wrong, whatever their condemnation is, it's going to be terrible. But there's going to be people who receive greater condemnation, which is lower, oh man. So for example, the beast and the false prophet, Satan, those people are all on a certain level. And they're the worst. They're at the bottom of the barrel, the hottest, if you will, if you want to, the worst of the worst. But then there's going to be people who are still in this bucket of condemnation, but there's going to be people who are at the bottom of the barrel and people who at least receive a lesser condemnation. So in Revelation chapter 20, verse 12, there is we're talking about the books. And so it's kind of an interesting concept trying to think about these books that are opened here. But there's a difference between the books. You have the book of life and you have the book of works. But let's talk about this for a little bit. The book of works is rather self-explanatory, but let's talk about the book of life. And let's talk about some ideas that you guys can bounce around in your head. Let's go to Psalm 139, verse 16. Go to Psalm 139, verse 16. So this is for people who haven't accepted Jesus, so they aren't saved by faith, so are judged by works. Yes, Jess. Those people who never put their faith in Jesus, they're in the book of works. But if you put your faith in Jesus, your name is in the book of life. And so the book of works is not applicable to you, and it's not applicable to me either. So what did I say? Psalm 139, verse 16. Thank you for writing that. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So glad that can help. Psalm 139. Let's go to Psalm 139, verse 16. So in Psalm 139, verse 16, you have this passage here. In Psalm 139, verse 16, it says, "Your eyes saw my substance, being yet unformed. And in your book, they all were written, the days fashioned for me, when as yet there were none of them." So here in verse 16, this book contains the names of every person that has ever lived. So this book of life might be a little bit easier for you and I to digest, and I'm not trying to rename the book. I'm just trying to use different words so that you can understand the idea. The book of life might be easier for you to wrap your mind around in a roundabout way as the book of those who have ever physically been alive. That's what this book is about. For anybody who has ever had a heartbeat, their name is in this book of life. Their name, whether they are born again or whether they are not born again, their name is written down. Now, it gets really interesting because you have this whole conversation about being blotted out. People, this is something that is a good kind of conversation to have because people think that a name being blotted out implies that they lose their salvation. And so I would argue that this is not that. I believe if you are saved, you are always saved. Because when you get justified, you become born again. And so for people who think that they can lose their salvation, that means that you become born again, then you go back to being unborn, and then you get born again, and then you get back to being unborn, and then you get born again. And the same people would have to, try to rationalize or harmonize rather the idea of when you get justified, you become a new creation. And when you become a new creation, if you lose your salvation, does that mean that you go back to the old creation, new creation, old creation, new creation, old creation? And so I'm like, I don't see it that way. And so, hey, thank you, Lindsay. We're not done. But this is a fun one. I told you, I was excited about this. This goes really deep. This whole study just stretches your mind on so many different levels, which again is why I love the book of Revelation. It's my favorite. So anyways, in Psalm chapter 139, verse 16, you see this book, and in your book, they were all written. So this book of life basically is holding the names of people who were ever physically alive ever. The worst people ever, and the people who are born again, the righteous and the unrighteous. So the physically alive, those physically alive that believe will have their names kept in the book of life. That's what's going on there. The people who believe will have their names kept in the book of life. Or they're going to have their names retained in the book of life, if that helps you. But those who do not believe are going to have their names blotted out, which is really, really strange. Let's go to Psalm 69, verse 28. Psalm 69, verse 28. Psalm 69, verse 28. So in Psalm 69, verse 28, this is again, as per usual, this is something that you need to test all things and hold fast to that which is good. I'm again giving you guys my opinion on things, trying to word it in a way that might be relatable or understandable, but you need to test it. But in Psalm 69 verse 28, it says, "Let them be blotted out of the book of the living." Now this is strange. Blotted out of the book of the living. Blotted out of the book of the living. And then it goes on and it says, "And not be written with the righteous." Now this gets weird. It gets strange. So you have a book, and if everybody who has ever been alive is written in this book, if they put their faith in Jesus, their names are still in that book. If the people die and they never put their faith in Jesus, their names have been blotted out and their names are no longer with the righteous. Their names are no longer there, which means if you open the book right now and you see somebody who died in the past who never, put their faith in Jesus, you can't even see their name. Their name is no longer with the righteous, which means it's a book containing the names of the righteous. Hence the book of life. And so only the people who do not put their trust and their faith in Jesus Christ are going to have their names blotted out. And so it's important to distinguish the difference between a Christian having their name being blotted out, which is an impossibility. It's an impossibility. It cannot happen. You can't do it. But a person who does not put their faith in Jesus, their names do get blotted out. So there is a difference there. There is a difference there. If you do not know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, your name, and you die, or the people who never put their faith in Jesus, their names have been blotted out. If you have put your faith in Jesus, then your name is never going to be blotted out. If you are born again, you are always born again. So in Psalm 69, verse 28, it says, "Let them," the unsaved people, "let them," the unsaved people, "be blotted out of the book of living, and not be written with and not be written with the righteous." So here in verse 28, it's really, oh, my back. Something popped. It's all bad. Oh, help me, Oprah Winfrey. Help me, Tom Cruise. What I use that was that Talladega Nights. But in Psalm 69, sheesh. In Psalm 69, there's two different ways of thinking here, just to kind of put this out there for you guys. There's two ways that are kind of unpacking this, and I'm trying to do the best that I can to unpack it for myself. But there's different viewpoints on this, and so I'm going to propose to you two viewpoints that seem to be the most, the most applicable to this kind of concept, because I'm giving you a view, but there are other views out there. And so it's on you to do your research and to study to show yourselves approved, right? It's called getting old. I'm telling you. But in Psalm 69, verse 28, it's what verse 28 is talking about. It seems, I'm assuming, this is my personal belief, I believe there are two books. I believe there is a book of life, and I believe there is a book of works. If you are a born-again believer, your name is never going away from the book of life. It is there forever. If you do not put your faith in Jesus, your name is going to be blotted out of this one, and it's going to be put over here in the book of life. So me personally, I believe there are two books, the book of life and the book of works. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because now I'm going to give you the other side of things. Some other people believe that there are two books of life. Some people think that there's the book of living, meaning that if you were ever physically alive, you're in this book. And then they also think that there is a book, the Lamb's Book of Life, and they say that those are two different things. They say the book of life and the Lamb's Book of Life are two different things. And then there's the book of works. So I believe that there's a book of life and there's a book of works. There's two. There's other people who think there's a book of life, which means all the people who have ever physically lived ever. Then they say that there's the Lamb's Book of Life, which is where your name is written if you are born again. And then there's the book of works, which is where your name is written if you do not put your faith in Jesus. So those are the two ideas, at least as what it comes down to. And so those are the options I feel like are the most plausible. So you can take those and you can kind of unpack them as most as you would like to. But it's really interesting to kind of look into both sides and be like, okay, here's what people think. Here's what it seems. Which one is it? Because there is a right answer. Now, this is a secondary issue. It doesn't really matter. It is a secondary issue at the end of the day. But those are some ideas right there to at least bounce around. Okay. All right. So that is Psalm chapter 69 verse 28, and yeah. So you can dance around this. Let's go back to Revelation. Let's just look at some things here, and let's just read some passages that are to kind of prime your mind a little bit to this kind of stuff. Hello, Angel. Good to see you. In Revelation chapter 3, somewhere in Revelation chapter 3, verse 5. In Revelation chapter 3, verse 5, this is one of the letters that is written to the church in Sardis. So in Revelation chapter 3, verse 5, it says this: "He who overcomes shall be clothed in white garments, and I will not blot out his name from the book of life." These are the people, unpacking this entire idea. Thank you. That hoodie is not. Yeah, it's you can go check it out on Threads That Preach if you want to go check it out. If you want to support this ministry, if anybody ever buys anything there, it is supporting this to help continue this ministry. And it's just an option, just a way if you would like to. But it's threadsthatpreach.com if you want to go check it out. But in Revelation chapter 3, verse 5, it says, "But he who overcomes shall be clothed in white garments, and I will not blot out his name from the book of life." So it's really fascinating trying to unpack this kind of thing, because you're left there with, is it a possibility to have your name blotted out of the book of life? Well, this is why it's good to unpack it, because your name can be blotted out of the book of life if you were never born again. And so it's really fascinating. So again, going back to the book of life, if you are a believer, if you put your faith in Jesus Christ, if he is your savior, if your faith is in him and him alone, then you're born again. Your name is never going to be blotted out. But for those who do not put their faith in Jesus, their names are blotted out. They're blotted out of the book of life, and they're put over here with the book of works. Ugh, shut up. Hello, Deanno Marsden. It's just a strange thing, you just come in here and you tell me to shut up. I'm sure you're probably a cool guy. I mean, why you gotta be yelling at me? It's so, I don't understand. Did you just tell him to? I I know. I don't get it. I'm so sorry I offended you with something. Actually, no, I'm not. I probably offend people all the time. If you haven't been offended yet, just hang around for a little bit longer. I'm sure we'll find something. There's another place that talks about the, what is it? Go to Revelation chapter 13. In Revelation chapter 13, verse 8, in Revelation chapter 13, verse 8, you see another picture. We're going to talk about the Lamb's Book of Life. Where was it? The Lamb's Book. Was that in Revelation 3? There's a place that talks about the Lamb's Book of Life. Hey, thank you, Holly. Can somebody help me out? There's like a lamb. I know there's the Lamb's Book of Life. Oh, the Book of Life. Oh, okay. No, I found it. It's Revelation 13. Okay, never mind. Revelation 13, verse 8. It was right there. In Revelation 13, verse 8, it says, all who dwell on the earth will worship him whose names have not been written in the book of the life of the Lamb. And so this is where people say that this is a whole different book. It's a whole different book. But it's the book of life of the Lamb, meaning that Jesus is the one opening up the books and giving the condemnation, the judgments. And so it's really interesting to see, like, is there two books? Is there the Book of Life and is there the Lamb's Book of Life? Well, I mean, you can make an argument for that, but it seems to me, and this is just my opinion, what I believe is that it is two books, the Book of Life and the Book of Works. So here in Revelation 13, verse 8, it says the Book of Life of the Lamb, but here's where you need to pay attention to what comes after that. After that, it says, from the foundation of the world, slain from the foundation of the world. Now, pay attention to the from the foundation of the world, because when you go to Revelation chapter 17, go to Revelation chapter 17. In Revelation chapter 17, it says, in Revelation 17, verse 8, it says this. In Revelation 17, verse 8, it says, the beast that you saw was and is not and will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go to perdition. And those who dwell on the earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. So people will say that Revelation 17, verse 8 is the Lamb's Book of Life because of the wording there where it says from the foundation of the world. So in Revelation 13:8, it says from the foundation of the world. And in Revelation 17, verse 8, it says from the foundation of the world. So they're saying these are two different books, and they're drawing from the foundation of the world being connected to both of them. But again, you can decide on what you believe, but one way or the other, there's books. And so it is not something that you do not want to be in the book of works. I'm just you don't want to do that. That's all bad. Okay. So that is something that you guys can bounce around in your heads and come to your own conclusion. Hopefully that is thought-provoking in some kind of way. Oh, you're both just so adorable. Just so adorable, Julie. Just loving on Bridget and Holly, and you guys just all so loving, and I just love it. I don't know why I do that. Like, it's not, I don't know. Just don't do that, Ryan. It's just don't. It's goodness gracious. Shy stone. I gotta pee so bad. I want to be granted access to the kingdom as a reward. Oh, man. All right, so let's go to Revelation chapter 20. Let's get back to Revelation chapter 20. So that's a little thought-provoking. Hopefully it helps. Haven't even had Jocko yet. I know it. I'm telling you what. Okay. All right, so let's keep going. In Revelation chapter 20, let's read Revelation chapter 20, verse 11 and 12. Let's kind of unpack it again. In Revelation chapter 20, verse 11, it says, then I saw a great white throne and him who sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heavens fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God, and books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged according to their works, by the things which were written in the books. And now here we get to verse 13. In Revelation chapter 20, verse 13, it says, the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Hades delivered up the dead who were in them. And they were judged, each one according to his works. Then death and Hades were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And anyone not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. So this is... Go pee, Ryan. Julie is my biggest advocate for using the restroom when your body tells you to use it. And I'm like, not today, body. Not doing it. I'm absorbing it. I'm just like... Okay, so Revelation chapter 20. In Revelation chapter 20, verse 13, let's unpack this a little bit. In Revelation, yeah, I know she's right. She is right. in Revelation chapter 20, verse 13, Jackie's still with us. Hello. Your kidneys will thank you. I know. It's not good to hold it. I know. I've been holding it. But it's. We'll go to the bathroom, sir. We are waiting. No, it's okay. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. It just makes me talk faster. Just pause the live. We won't leave. I promise. What's up, Bible students? Bible students 2020. What's your name mean? That's why you talk fast. I know. I just chug a gallon of water and I'm like, let's do this thing. hook up a catheter. I know. Don't tell my wife will come down here and I'll be like, don't you even think about it. You stay away from me. But he's so distracted right now. I know it's so bad. Hey, y'all. How long have we been on live? I don't know. At least 2 hours and 45 minutes. I had to stop it at the end of the recap, so it's probably close to 4 hours. Welcome, Katrina. Thanks for being here. It will take 2 seconds. Hey, play Running Water sound, someone. Twinkle, twinkle. Guys, okay, so Revelate, I mean, so it's been 89 years. What's up? Of the Titanic when what's her name? I forget. The person. Is it Jules? What is her name? What did somebody Rose, thank you. Brianna Rose, yes, see you guys get it. Swoosh, splash, kerplunk. Oh my goodness. Stop it. Oh, you could have already been back. Lori. Alright, so Revelation chapter 20. We're not. No. We don't. No. We're just going to truck on through. Blocked. I know, right? Dankest Bagel gets it. Stop. All right. So in Revelation chapter 20, verse 13, I don't even know how to get rid of comments. So, I would threaten you guys with like getting rid of or putting, no comments around, but I would never do that. I would just threaten you with it. And but I don't know how to do that. So if I said that I would do it, you'd be like, you don't even know how to do it. And I'll be like, yeah, you're right. I don't know how to do it because I don't know how, there's lots of buttons. Here we go. Revelation chapter 20, verse 13. In verse 13, it says, the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Hades delivered up the dead who were in them. And they were judged, each one according to his works. So here in verse 13, the second resurrection takes place 1,000 years after the first. Now, we remember before, right? We remember talking about the first one. The first resurrection took place. Let's go back to Revelation chapter 20. In Revelation chapter 20, verse 6, in Revelation chapter 20, verse 6, it says, blessed and holy is he who has part in the first resurrection. The first resurrection. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting because this is good to know. So what is it? It's like in 1 Corinthians. Okay, so I'm not even going to go there. In 1 Corinthians somewhere, I want to say like 5 or 2 Corinthians 5. So 2 Corinthians 5. So it's in one of the Corinthians. Yeah, see. Okay, hold on. No, I think it's 2 Corinthians because it's got to be right. In 2 Corinthians 5, it says, It says in verse 8, in 2 Corinthians 5, verse 8, it says, but we are confident, yes, well, please, rather, to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord. Okay, so we understand that for born-again believers, we are going to, one day, if the rapture doesn't occur in our lifetime, we are going to die. That's going to happen, right? We understand we are going to die. And when we die, we are going to be absent from this body, and we are going to be present with the Lord. So this is it's like your soul is going to leave your body. And so when you're present with the Lord, you are going to be with the Lord with your soul. But you're not going to have a body. And so the question is, when is this resurrection? And so we talked about this before. We talked about the differences of resurrections. And this is why it goes back to 1 Corinthians 15. Because in 1 Corinthians 15, Jesus is the first fruits of the first resurrection. He died and he was the first fruit of the first resurrection. He's the first fruit. And then after him, everyone in their own order. You guys remember talking about that? So everyone is going to be in an order. There's going to be an order. Like imagine like a line. Like imagine you're the dad, and then the mom, and then the oldest child, and then the second oldest child who is neglected because they're the middle child, and then the baby. Yay, babies! But like that's the order of operations. Like that's how it works, right? And so that's an order. So just like the First Corinthians, like how Jesus is the first fruits, there is an order for the resurrections to occur. There's a specific order. It's not just going to be completely chaos. People aren't just going to be popping up and like, oh my goodness. Like, no, there is an order to this thing to take place. But Jesus is the first fruit. After Jesus, it's the bride. We get our resurrected bodies. We're going to have our glorified bodies. It's going to be wonderful. Then after us, you have the Old Testament saints. After the Old Testament saints, you have the tribulation saints. And then after them, the tribulation saints who died during the tribulation. There is an order that's bam, 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 bam. And so when you think about the second resurrection, there is also an order to this as well. And so it's really fascinating thinking about this kind of stuff because it just makes you just like, so just like Jesus was the first fruits of the first resurrection, the Antichrist, paralleling, being a counterfeit, is going to be the first fruits of the second resurrection. And this is why it gets deep, because we talked about this before in Isaiah 14. If you guys remember back in Isaiah 14, I don't even know if we need to turn there. I'm turning to Isaiah 14. We can at least look at it. So this is something, I don't want to take as much time on this because we kind of already talked about it a little bit, but in Isaiah chapter 14, it gets really dynamic. I mean, it gets like there are some deep ideas here as far as understanding what's actually being spoken of in Isaiah 14. But in Isaiah 14, you have the death of the Antichrist being described, which is really bananas because it's strange. You're like, wait a second. In Revelation, it says that the Antichrist and the false prophet were cast alive into the lake of fire. So how is Isaiah 14 describing the death of the Antichrist? In Isaiah 14, verse 18, it says, all the kings of the nations, all of them sleep in glory, everyone in his own house, but you are cast out of your grave like an abominable branch, like the garment of those who are slain, thrust through with a sword, who go down to the stones of the pit, like a corpse trodden underfoot. You will not be joined with them in burial, because you have destroyed your land and slain your people. The brood of evildoers shall never be named. And so it's really interesting thinking about Isaiah 14, because Isaiah 14 seems to be describing the death of the Antichrist. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because if this is describing the death of the Antichrist, that means that he had to be resurrected in order to be thrown alive into the lake of fire. Now, why that is interesting is because it makes sense to me, and here's why it makes sense to me. Because just like Jesus is this, like he is life, the Antichrist, it's death, right? Just like Jesus is light, the Antichrist is darkness. And I'm trying to draw a pattern to you as far as how, as you have God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, you have the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. It's the unholy trinity. My point here is it's a distinct contrast between the two. And so when you see one is the opposite of the other, my point here is to lead you to this right here. Jesus is the first fruit of the first resurrection. He received his body, his glorified body. Jesus has his glorified body. He still has that. It's got scars all over it. That's what we read in Revelation chapter 5. A lamb as though it had been slain. That's what John sees up in heaven. That's Jesus' glorified body. And so with Jesus being the first fruits of the first resurrection, when you look at Satan, or when you look at the Antichrist, when you look at the Antichrist, he's the first fruits of the second resurrection. Because if Isaiah 14 describes him dying, that also means that he was resurrected to be cast alive into the lake of fire. So he's paralleling everything that Jesus did. Jesus was the first fruits of the first resurrection. The Antichrist is the first fruits of the second resurrection. You don't want to be a part of the second resurrection. That's all bad. And so that's why when you see that the false prophet and the Antichrist were cast alive into the lake of fire, because that's what it says in Revelation 19, verse 20. In Revelation 19, verse 20, it says, then the beast was captured with him, the false prophet. And then it goes on and it says, these two were cast alive into the lake of fire. They have their human bodies. So you need to understand the bodies are connected to these people when they're cast alive into the lake of fire. So just like you and I are going to have bodies in heaven, they are going to have bodies in the lake of fire. Now, let's go back to Revelation chapter 20. In Revelation chapter 20, verse 13, it says, the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Hades delivered up the dead who were in them. And they were judged, each one according to his works. So this second resurrection takes place 1,000 years after the first resurrection. This second resurrection will also take place in a specific order like we talked about before, but Jesus was the first fruits and he was part of the first resurrection, and the Antichrist will be the first fruits of the second resurrection because the Antichrist have already died. That's what we talked about in Isaiah chapter 14. So the Antichrist is what we talked about is the inverse of Jesus Christ. But the bodies of the dead will be reunited with the souls that are being resurrected. This second resurrection, the bodies of the dead are going to be reunited. There's going to be a reunited situation going with this second resurrection. The bodies of the dead are going to reunite with the souls of the dead, and they are going to stand before the judgment, the great white throne. And then they are going to receive their sentencing. And then after they receive their sentencing, then there's going to be the execution of that sentencing. So the books are going to be opened. And when the books are opened, everybody's going to receive their sentencing, being like, hey, you did this is your sentencing. Stand over there. You did this is your sentencing. Stand over there. They get their bodies back. Let's go to Matthew chapter 10, verse 28. And the reason why I think this is so interesting is because it paints a whole different visual for you. Matthew chapter 10, verse 28. In Matthew chapter 10, verse 28, Jesus says this. In Matthew 10, verse 28, Jesus says, and do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Soul and body. Body, right? So my point here is pay attention to the body. So these people are going to be resurrected. Their souls are going to be resurrected, and they are going to be reunited. They're going to get their bodies back when they stand before this great white throne judgment. And so when they are there standing physically, then they are going to receive their sentencing just like a judge would normally do, and then they're going to be cast into the lake of fire. That's crazy. So you and I are going to have bodies during the millennial kingdom. We're going to have our glorified bodies during the millennial kingdom. It's going to be awesome. But then after the millennial kingdom, there's going to be the great white throne judgment after Satan is cast into the lake of fire. And then after Satan is cast into the lake of fire, then death and Hades is going also to be cast in there as well. We need to understand what the difference is between hell and the lake of fire. There is a difference between hell and the lake of fire. Let's go to Luke chapter 16, verse 19 real fast. Luke chapter 16, verse 19. In Luke chapter 16, verse 19, you have we're going to read this passage here. In Luke chapter 16, verse 19, it says, there was a certain rich man who was clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day. But there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, full of sores, who was laid at his gate, desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. So it was that the beggar died and was carried by the angels to Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And being in torments in Hades, he lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. Then he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and you are tormented. And besides all this, between us and you there is a great gulf fixed, so that those who want to pass from here to you cannot, nor can those from there pass to us. Then he said, I beg you, therefore, Father, that you would send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, that he may testify to them, lest they also come to this place of torment. Abraham said to him, They have Moses and the prophets. Let them hear them. And he said, No, Father Abraham, but if one goes to them from the dead, they will repent. But he said to him, If they do not hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rise from the dead. So what you see here in Luke chapter 16 is a whole bunch of stuff. There is so unbelievable, like so many things that you can just pull from this. Hey, awesome, Kristen. Will it be a literal fire of separation? It seems to be a literal fire. So what is interesting here in Luke chapter 16 is many things. The first thing that I think is important to pay attention to is what Abraham is calling this person. Abraham is calling this person son. In verse 25, he says, Son, remember that in your lifetime. Now, why this is interesting to pay attention to is because of the Pharisaical way of teaching back during this time. The Pharisees, back during the time when Jesus was boots on the ground, when Jesus showed up, Jesus was combating the Pharisees' teaching. The Pharisees were teaching that everybody who was of Israel was going to be born, and they were born again, and they were fine, and they had nothing to worry about because they were God's chosen people. But here, what you see here is it's clearly not so, because Abraham refers to this person as son. He says son. So Abraham, this is Abraham calling the person in Hades son. So this is a refutation for the Pharisees' way of teaching that you read about in Matthew chapter. You see the confrontation there between John the Baptist and Matthew 3 and whatnot. But all throughout the book of Matthew, Jesus is contending with the Pharisees. But this rich man was in Hades. And so the idea here is that Hades is a temporary place. It's a temporary place. And so if somebody died yesterday and they never put their faith in Jesus, they are in the same place that this rich man is. It's a place of torment. It's a torment. It's a temporary holding place. And so the idea that you see in Luke chapter 16 is if you picture this ball here and you call this ball Hades, and then you split the ball in half. The top part of the ball is called paradise. That's where Abraham and Isaac were, and that's where Lazarus was. And then if you look at this other part of the ball, this bottom part, which is the place of torment, is called Hades or Sheol. And so that is where the rich man was. So the rich man is down here looking at Abraham and Lazarus, and they're having a conversation. So what I want you to be sensitive to is that they had their memories. The rich man saw Lazarus. He saw Lazarus, and he sees Lazarus. He's like, hey, can you send Lazarus over to me? That's interesting. But what's also interesting is that the rich man never met Abraham. He never met Abraham, but somehow he knew. He knew Abraham. So there's something that is realized, that is now they are enlightened to some kind of capacity because he knew Abraham, even though they have never physically met, because Abraham died centuries before the rich man was even born. but the rich man knew Abraham. And so there's also something that's important to pay attention to here, because what's going on in this scene is that the rich man never once says, I don't belong here. This is not fair. I don't deserve this. He never says any of that. He's just asking for people to not come to where he is. And so he's realizing what's going on, and he sees and he understands. And so there's people who say, I don't believe in God. But if you read Romans chapter 1, you find that they are without excuse. It doesn't matter if you believe in God or not. He is real. And there's going to come a time to where, hopefully that somebody can reach that individual who does not have their faith in Jesus, so that they don't have to go to this place. And this is not even the final abode. This place, Hades, the bottom place, is going to be picked up and thrown into the lake of fire. The lake of fire is the final resting place. That is the final separation. It is done. When people are in the lake of fire, it's done. The thing is, though, is that nobody's in the lake of fire right now. Why? The reason why nobody's in the lake of fire right now is because people are still sinning. So when you do something, if you never give your life, if you never put your faith in Jesus, if you never put your faith in Jesus and you die, you are going to Hades, which is the place of torment. And the reason why you cannot be going right to the lake of fire is because all of the terrible things, all of the sin, whether or not you think they were terrible or not, is still playing throughout time. And it's rippling throughout time. And all the things that you have done, whether they were good or bad, are still playing out. Your action causes a reaction. And so when you do something wrong, like let's use what happened back during the Holocaust, right? When that took place, what they did to the Jewish people, that one individual whose name I don't really want to say, just because it might get flagged or whatever, that one Fitler, that guy, his actions are still rippling throughout time. And so he cannot be judged because people are still piggybacking off of his ideology. They're still playing off of his motions, his ideas, his actions. They are still living by what he used to do and all of those things. And his hatred is still rippling throughout time. And so that's why people cannot be cast into the lake of fire until it's all done. It's not going to happen until it's all done. And so when you look at Luke chapter 16, you see two people. They're having a conversation. The rich man, pay attention. There is no name for the rich man. He is labeled as the rich man. There's no name there. He's like, I do not know you. What is your name? So in Matthew chapter 7, he says, depart from me into everlasting fire. He's like, Lord, did we not do all of these things? He's like, I never knew you. I never knew you. This goes right hand in hand with that Sermon on the Mount, what Jesus was talking to in Matthew chapter 7. It's remarkable. He's like, I never knew you. He doesn't have a name. He is literally labeled as the rich man. Lazarus, on the other hand, who did put his faith in Jesus, has a name. And his name is in the book of life. Now, what's so interesting is that so we just got done talking about the tormenting side, which is temporary. That's going to be picked up and thrown into the lake of fire. Let's talk about the paradise side. When Jesus died, or let's go back to the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, you have all of the Old Testament saints. You have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, Daniel, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Isaiah. All of those guys in the Old Testament, when they died, they also went to Hades, but they went to the paradise side. They didn't go to the torment side. They went to the paradise side, which is why when the rich man was looking over here, he sees Abraham. They're having the conversation. So Abraham is over there. He's looking at the rich man. Abraham was over there. Abraham was not in heaven like how it's going to be for you and I. This is a difference between, this is why people get so worked up about dispensations. Like this is a prime example. In order, like back what was applicable back then during the Old Testament, when they died, they went to paradise. The difference between you and I in New Testament, when we die, Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 8 or something, says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. Meaning if you die right now, if you put your faith in Jesus, you're going to be with the Lord. That never used to be. That is new. That is different. That is unique to us. That was not how it was back for Jacob, Daniel, Isaiah, whatever wasn't applicable to them. So you have Boaz, you got Ruth, you got, Esther, you got all of these people, Old Testament saints, just hanging out in paradise because they were not covered by the blood. The blood is what is different. You need to pay attention to the blood. What is the difference? Because the blood of bull and goats was not sufficient for them. It was a covering. So back then they were covered. That's why they did the sacrificial systems. They were covered. It was for a temporary time. The blood that they used back then was good enough to keep them out of the tormenting side, but it wasn't good enough for them to be with God. It was good enough to separate them in between. And so that is why they go to this one place. And so when you think about the blood that they were, why didn't they go to heaven right away? It's because Jesus hadn't died yet. Everything changed when he died on the cross. That was the year everything changed. And so it's so remarkable to think about the blood. And so when you have the two, the paradise side and the Hades side, when you think about the paradise side with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, all of those guys over here, they were waiting. They were just waiting. And so when Jesus dies on the cross, he is buried. When he's buried, he goes to Hades, or he goes to paradise side. He doesn't go to the torment side. He goes to the paradise side, and he takes captivity captive. He's like, all of you guys here, he's like, I'm taking you and you're going up with me. And he did all of that in the sight of all of the people who are over here. Because just like the rich man could see Abraham, what do you think the rich man was doing when Jesus came down to take Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob home to be with him? Because everything changed when Jesus died on the cross. Everything changed. It goes back to the cross, which is why Paul is like, you know what? He's like, I determined to know nothing among you except Christ and him crucified, because that is everything, guys. That is everything. You and I, in 2025, we're looking back to the cross. And Moses and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they were looking forward to the cross. In the millennial kingdom, they are going to be looking back to the cross. It's all screaming, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And it is so good to see how that plays in. But this is the difference this is the importance to understand, the reason why it's important to understand the difference between Hades and the lake of fire. Hades, when you go back to when you go back to Revelation chapter 20, in Revelation chapter 20, verse 14. In Revelation chapter 20, verse 14, it says, then death and Hades were cast into the lake of fire. Hades is going to be empty, because all of the people who are in Hades waiting to be judged are finally get they're part of the second resurrection. They're reunited with their bodies. Their soul is back with their body, and they stand before the great white throne. They receive their sentencing, and then when they receive their sentencing, then the execution takes place. The execution of the sentencing takes place. Just like if you go to a court and you stand before a judge and he hits with the gavel, he hits the hammer down on the table, and he says, it's, right, bam, done. Here's your sentencing. And then the execution is when they are all cast into the lake of fire. Because there's different levels there, right? The greater condemnation. That's why Jesus said to the Pharisees, you're going to receive the greater condemnation. And so that's what's going on here in Revelation chapter 20, verse 14, where it says, then death and Hades were cast into the lake of fire. There's a difference between the Hades and the lake of fire. So in verse 15, Revelation chapter 20, verse 15, it says, and if anyone not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. Guys, if you don't know Jesus, if you have not put your faith in Jesus, you are not in the book of life. And it says here that you will be cast into the lake of fire if your name is not found in the book of life. And so I would just like to implore you to put your faith in Jesus. It is Christ and Christ alone, guys. It's not Christ and water baptism. It is Christ and his completed work on the cross. The gospel can be found in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 3 and 4, where it talks about how Jesus was buried according to the scriptures. Jesus died according to the scriptures. He was buried and he rose again on the third day according to the scriptures. It is for by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. It's nothing you can do. If you think you can earn your salvation, then you're living in a world of hurt, because then your mind is telling you that I might have just lost my salvation. You can't earn your salvation, which means you can't do anything to lose your salvation, because it's not based upon merit. It is for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes, it's not whosoever believes and gets water baptized. No, it's whosoever believes shall not perish, but have everlasting life. That's amazing. Have everlasting life is in the perfect tense, or what is it? It's in the it's basically meaning that you have the my mind is completely blank right now. But it means you have it right now. It means you have it right now. If you believe, then you have it right now. Even though this body may die, you're living forever. And that is something that you need to be mindful of, which goes back to the two books, the book of life and the book of works. Your name, which one is it? Where's it at? Where is it at? And so that's what I got for you guys. That is the study. Yeah. Ariana, absolutely. Good news. Absolutely. That's what I got for you guys. That's Revelation chapter 20. We finally finished it. And so what an amazing study. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I'm telling you, like, you just go all over the scriptures in this book, and it's so wonderful. If you guys are new here, if you haven't followed me over on YouTube, all of these are uploaded to YouTube. If you would like to go back, Rachel, if you would like to follow me on YouTube, I'm live streaming on YouTube right now. There's a YouTube link up here in my TikTok. Hey, thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, Three Wave. Thank you so much. Thank you, Renee. Thank you so much. Thank you, Cindy. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, if you would like to follow me on YouTube, I would encourage you to, because TikTok might be going away here in like 70 days or something like that. I don't know. But if TikTok goes away, then we will still be doing these on YouTube, which is why I'm glad to have this platform on both. And so thank you guys for being here on both of them. You know, it's cool to have two platforms to be able to stream on at the same time. But if TikTok does go away, I wouldn't want to lose contact with you. But if you're looking for a Bible study, and if you like kind of like what you've seen, then you can follow on YouTube, because I upload all of these to YouTube. And you can go back and rewind and fast forward, or, you know, skip through, or whatever you need to do to find what you're looking for if you are trying to find a certain spot. Because I know I talk fast. Yeah, be wise. Absolutely. Manners. Hey, thank you. Yeah. And so if you would like to follow me on YouTube, I would encourage you to do that so we can stay in touch. And also just so you can, you know, just dive in, guys. It's so cool. This was very informative. Thank you. Yeah. Awesome, Ava. That is super cool. Yeah, Yogi, Ephesians 2:8-9. I'm telling you what. Thank you for doing that, Bridget. What times are you on? It's pretty much twice a week. I do one in the daytime and one in the nighttime. This one is the one in the daytime. So I'll do this exact same one probably on Thursday or Friday or Saturday or something like that. And I'll do that one more in the evening time to reach people who might not be on TikTok at this time. So I try to do it 2 times. But one way or the other, I mean, we've done this 25 books. So these are all up on YouTube. I'm telling you, we've done Revelation. This was the very first book that we've ever done. And it's pretty cool. But we've done this book about 1.5 years ago. And so now we're going through it again. But we've done like 25 books already. And it's just been so much fun. We've done Revelation, Daniel, Ruth, Hebrews, James, John, Acts, Romans, all of the Pauline epistles, Isaiah, Zechariah, Matthew, 1 Peter, 2 Peter. And now we're going through Revelation again. And I'm just growing, guys. Like, I don't know everything. I'm never going to know everything. And I forget half of the things that I do know. And so it's good to just keep diving in, because when you dive in, then you're going to let your light shine. And when you get lit up, people are going to notice, and people are going to be like, what's different about you? And that is where you have the opportunity to tell them about Jesus, because we are one day closer to home, guys. I mean, I can't tell you that. Like, you and I are here for a reason. The main thing is the main thing. Absolutely. Hey, thank you, Terry. We are here for such a purpose. Like, you are here for a reason. If you are a born again believer, you are here for a reason. And that reason is not for yourself. It's not for you to make the most money that you can possibly make. It's not for you to be as popular as you're trying to be, or buy as many houses or as many cars or whatever. You are here to glorify the Lord. That's what you're here for. That's what I'm here for. And so the question is, are you doing it? are you doing it? Would I be able to pick you out of a crowd and be like, that's a Christian right there? That right there has to be. And so if you are, then good. If you're doing what you're doing, if you're living for the Lord, then keep going, guys. Like, I want you to encourage you. In Hebrews, it talks about how we need to stir one another up, and even more so as we see the day approaching. And guys, I'm telling you, like, I think I see the day approaching. I could be wrong. I have no idea what the future holds, but it seems like we are getting very, 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 very close for us to go home. And if that's true, if you believe that, if you're a person who believes that, then you might want to, hey, thank you, Joey. Then you need to let that sink in. Oh, here was an idea I was going to show you guys. This was one of the things. Tell me what you guys think about this. This was just a black one. This is threadsthatpreach.com. If you wanted to support this ministry, we do threadsthatpreach.com, which is a website. If you wanted to buy something, you don't have to, but it supports the continuation of this. And so I always say, I try to I'm going to keep doing this until the wheels fall off. And so we'll see, like everything you guys supporting me, I always look at it as a blessing from the Lord. Because it is, you guys are a huge encouragement. But here is something that I was toying with, something basic that is not up on the website yet, but here's an idea. It's just a black t-shirt with that Threads That Preach logo. And then down here, it would have the, very basic there, but then on the back, it would have, I kind of like flags. I know a lot of people like flags too, but this would be on the back. And so, it's basic, yet says a lot in a roundabout way. And I kind of like it. And then down here is on the front, it says is the logo, which is basically, or the website rather, says Sheesh, Threads That Preach. So there's something that we were toying with and trying to figure out, but there's other things that are in motion as well. So who knows? It'll be up there. You love it? Very cool, Lori. I like it too. I think it's pretty neat. It might be going up here. Then there's also this. This was one that we just put up today, actually. This says "Abide in Me," which I think is pretty cool. It's a tote, and this is for the ladies, but it's got all kinds of pockets and zippers and stuff in there too, which I am not a person to try to sell things, so this is weird for me even talking about it, but I figured since it's sitting here because I'm working over here on this other stuff too, I figured I might as well show you, but I just know whenever I do that, I feel insanely awkward. I am not just buy. I just can't, I just can't do that, so I'll say it, and then I'll stop talking about it. But there that is. I like totes. Well, Manners, there you go. Yay! I know, right, Bridget? Love it. Very cool. Hopefully you guys like it. I'm going to get a hoodie. Awesome, Shystone. Yeah, man, let me know. We're working on some other things too, trying to keep it just fresh in there. So playing with ideas and trying to figure it out, and it's a learning process, and I thank you guys for your patience and your support in general. It means the world. Are those on TikTok? Marine Mom, it is on threadsthatpreach.com. Threads That Preach. I think Amber or Mark might have pinned it. Yeah, thank you, Amber. Threads That Preach. It's threadsthatpreach.com. I feel that, Ryan. Yeah, man. Telling you what, Bagel, I'm glad you feel it, because I feel it too. We're feeling it. Yeah, thank you very much. Absolutely. But can we just go back to the study real fast, because I'm going to be logging off here in a second. How awesome was that study? I loved that study. It just is mind-blowing how many things are in the Bible where you're just I had no idea. And you're just this is crazy, because we all have a little, if you're a born again believer, then you have a little understanding, but it just shows you the layers, the levels to this stuff, man. And it is just unreal. That was a pretty good one. Wow. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I love that. Cool, Julie. Me too. It was so good. It was just so good. Superb. Yeah, Carla. I think it was very neat. Bible never disappoints. I'm telling you what. Hey, thank you, May. Thank you so much for that. Rose. Very cool. I love the book of Revelation. Me too, Shy Stone. It was good. I learned a lot about the Millennial Kingdom from your studies. Very cool. Thank you, Tess. Stressful. Daniel 12, 1 through 3. What about Daniel 12, 1 through 3? Rachel? Daniel 12, 1 through 3 was that when Michael stands up, the prince that watches over your people, and talks about the tribulation. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Carla. Thank you for those roses there. That's very kind. Read Revelation a few times, but with Ryan, easy to understand. Very cool, Constance. That is very kind. It was really good, right, Laura? Lori, I think so too. Like, wow, I didn't know that's what it meant. I'm telling you, me too, man. That is very cool. Very cool. It is awesome. Thank you, Yogi. Thank you for that gift. That is very kind. Thank you for the heart. Thank you for the heart. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to get out of here. Try to tell somebody about Jesus if you have the opportunity to. You know, we are one day closer to home, and I need you to recognize that it is an absolute privilege. An absolute privilege to tell people about Jesus. It's a privilege. You know, like you would think it would be the biggest honor of a lifetime to be, you know, I don't know, inducted into the Hall of Fame, and you would like brag about it and boast about it and like let everybody know what happened in a sense, you know. But when you think about what you have the privilege to do, kind of put things into perspective. It's a privilege, guys. It is an absolute privilege to be able to be a light in a dark world. And so I'd encourage you to do that and let your light so shine, guys, because then God's going to be getting glory for that. So, all right, guys, I'm out of here, and hopefully we'll be doing this again at nighttime during Thursday night, Friday night, maybe Saturday. I don't know. I'll keep you guys posted. But all right, guys,